This is Shujana, and I will be the host for this rest of the event. Ladies and gentlemen, as the sun rises on the groundbreaking conference, we embark on a journey of discovery, one that seeks to revolutionize the way we think about innovations in sanitation in the face of climate change. Now we are moving forward to our next session, and it will be a plenary session, and the topic will be innovative technologies and climate resilient sanitation. The keynote speakers will be Professor Juliet, Willetts, Institute of Sustainable Futures, University of Technology, Sydney, Professor Feroze Ahmed, Emeritus Professor, Stamford University, Bangladesh, and the moderator will be Mr. Peter Maes, Chief of WASH, UNICEF Bangladesh, to moderate the first plenary of the conference on the thematic areas of innovative technologies and climate resilient sanitation. Please welcome on stage Mr. Peter Maes, Chief of WASH, UNICEF Bangladesh, to be the moderator of this first plenary session. And the keynote speaker as well, and Professor Juliet, Willetts, Institute of Sustainable Futures, University of Technology, Sydney, Professor Feroze Ahmed, Emeritus Professor, Stamford University, Bangladesh. Please give a big round of applause for our honorable keynote speaker and the moderator as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your presence in the toilet conference, honorable guests, honorable participants. I think we chose the name Toilet Conference. I guess you understand by now that we chose a simple name and that actually it's a kind of a metaphor for the tip of the iceberg image, where you have this simple toilet, but hidden beneath it is a very complex world that requires attention, that can be the invisible blessing, but it can be also source of a lot of problems in society. Proper sanitation is linked to so many aspects of society, and I cannot improve on the image that Rana already put on the table here. So let's dive straight into the presentation, as time is not our friend for the moment. So my name is Peter, I'm the Chief of WASH for UNICEF, and so I arrived in Bangladesh on my birthday actually. And so prior to that, I was Chief of WASH in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was quite a change, to be honest. And so I've been here in Bangladesh for a year now, and I'm standing here presenting or moderating a discussion on innovative technologies and climate resilient sanitation. And I must say it's a huge challenge in this particular context, because I started my humanitarian and development career or life in 1990, quite a while ago actually, and so I've never encountered in my whole life the floodings as they are presented here in Bangladesh. They are, if I can say so, biblical, impressive, and so you wonder how people can survive in this kind of environment where yearly the whole household is taken away in areas that previously had not seen floodings in 15 years. Apart from that, you have the whole problem of droughts, arsenicum, heat stress. There is a lot of issues to address, and so I think that is a session on innovative technologies and climate resilient sanitation could be a real interesting, an interesting discussion. So without further ado, I would like to present the keynote speakers that I have just met with them, but they stand out because of their humility combined with technical knowledge. And so I think we're going to have a real interesting session here today. There will be keynote speaks. There will be afterwards a kind of a question session with the public. And so please feel free, this is a safe space, you can talk out and ask your questions. You've probably seen the video that we started with, so there must be quite a lot of complicated questions on the table, and the panel is ready to accept them. So first of all, let me start by introducing Professor Juliet Willetts, who's a research director at University of Technology of the Sydney Institute of Sustainable Futures. She leads applied research, so not theoretical research, but operational research, to inform water and sanitation policy and practice in Asia and the Pacific. She works on climate change, technical, environment, governance, gender equality, public health aspects, partnering with governments, UN agencies, research institutes, in short, bringing people together. And so she's widely recognized. She holds a PhD from the University of NSW in environmental engineering, and she has published more than 150 peer-reviewed articles. So without further ado, Juliet, if I can ask you to the stands, time is not on our side, so please go ahead with your fascinating presentation.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this toilet conference. Sorry, I just want to check if my slides can be... It's showing here, but it's lost the picture. Okay, my opening was based around the picture that you're not seeing. So on this slide, I had put a picture of flooding in Kalimantan in Indonesia. And it's a photo that has pit latrines, that has typical sanitation services that we know are not yet still fit for purpose, because they're spreading pathogens, they're spreading disease whenever it floods, whenever the groundwater rises. And we know that those are the places we need to change. We heard from the earlier session of how children are affected. So these are the challenges that we're faced with, and why we need to bring together not just technological innovation, but also how does it come together with wider systems change. And my key message is about how we must work on these together. So looking at climate change, we know that we're always seeing these different graphs that look very scary as we look just at the present, but even worse when we look to the future. So here we have one from the World Meteorological Organization that shows already last year, 2024, it was the hottest year on record. It was already at 1.5 degrees above the previous average. And yet we have a global situation where we have countries pulling out of the Paris Agreement, and we don't have enough action that's going to save us from some very dire consequences. So that's the serious future that we're looking at. And within this, we're trying to address this issue of toilets and of sanitation, and the extra challenges that floods, that droughts, that sea level rise, that heat stress will create for us as professionals working on sanitation that we are going to need to overcome. So next, I want to move on to at least some positive aspects that are happening at the global level. We have in 2023 agreements on a global goal for adaptation. This is the first time that adaptation came really to the fore at COP28, and there was agreement within that goal that the first target should be focused on water, and within this, climate resilient sanitation is given specific mention. Why does that matter for us? It matters because it will provide a measurement framework for countries to report on. It's a global goal, and that measurement framework is going to include climate resilient sanitation. So countries are going to need to not just safely manage sanitation, but show how progress is being made on climate resilient sanitation. And that is something that we can all build from. Another advance that happened last year was that we now have a shared definition, a shared sector-wide definition of climate resilient water, sanitation, and hygiene. And that definition is important because until that point, everyone had their own different idea of what is climate resilient sanitation. And so here we can see it's about anticipating the climate events that are going to happen, and to look at different possible scenarios, because climate change brings uncertainty. We're not just going to be able to predict a particular level of a flood in a particular year in a particular place. We're going to need to anticipate and be ready for many different possibilities. It also says we need to respond, to cope with, and to quickly be able to recover from different climate events. At breakfast this morning with Peter, we were talking about the difference between building infrastructure bigger and stronger and more robust to deal with climate change? Or on the other hand, maybe we just let it fail, but we set it up to be able to be repaired very quickly. And those are different approaches, but they still get to this same point of being able to recover quickly and to cope. The last two verbs in this definition are to adapt or transform. And these are important because the transforming, as we heard in the opening ceremony from Jack, from others, we need to let go of some outdated ways of thinking about sanitation. We may need to transform and not just make small incremental changes, but really change the way we're approaching sanitation, and particularly its connection with the water cycle. Three other aspects to this definition. One, that it's at the same time as achieving climate resilience, we're trying to also include safely managed sanitation. Second one, we need to minimize emissions at the same time as we're providing services. Please, can you move my slides back? It's not at this, I'm not seeing the same here as you're seeing on the screen, and it's giving away my story before I get to it. Please, can you move it back? One more. Okay, so I wanted to share two pieces that I think are important for this sector. These are my last points about the global level, that there is work being done with the climate finances, including the Green Climate Fund, to develop guidance about what do projects look like that fund climate resilient sanitation. And this is very important because at the moment there is only a tiny, tiny, tiny proportion of climate financing that is directed to sanitation. But with this guidance and with willingness at the global level to fund our sector, we need to step up and use this guidance. And the other piece that you see on the screen here is a collaborative piece by the International Water Association that I and others here, including Hassin Jahan, including Tanvir Ahmed, put together on how we move from ideas to action on climate resilience. Okay, so the second part of my presentation is focused on acceleration strategies. So put your hand up if when you come to a conference, you're hoping you'll come away with a few different ideas or structures or ways of thinking to help you with your work. Yeah, we don't want to go home with the same ideas that we walked into this room. So I want to share with you today a few ideas that we've been thinking about in terms of how we accelerate progress. Next slide, please. So what I want to share with you is there are researchers who focus just on looking at how does system change happen in the area of sustainability transformations. And they came up with these three main models: the keep going model, the reach further model, and the change the rules model. And the next few slides explain what these are. Next slide. The first model assumes that we've already got the technologies that we need for climate resilient sanitation. We just need to stabilize the market around these, the skills, and we need to remove barriers to speed up. And we can see from the pictures here, they're things we're very familiar with. We can put up, for instance, flood protection around a fecal sludge treatment plant. We can put roofs over the drying beds so that when there's heavy rain, they're not affected. We can lift latrines in areas that flood. So we can make modifications to the existing technologies that we already know how to do, and we can accelerate change in that way, building on what we already know. Next slide. The second model is that we have new technology solutions, but they're only at very small scale. They haven't yet been established. We need to prove them, and then we need to grow and replicate them. And this is what most of you would think of when you think of scale up. It's how we take something from one place to another and how we expand from a single innovation what we do. And on this slide, you can see a picture of a membrane bioreactor. This was initiative of Nuhu Ayman from ICDRB that we visited yesterday in a hospital in Dhaka. So this is more advanced technology. It's not a pit latrine. It's not an anaerobic baffled reactor, a passive system. It's more advanced technology, but it's suitable for the wastewater in hospitals. As you can see, it's above ground. It will be protected from floods. The water is treated to a standard that we can reuse that water and not need to bring in as many water resources to the hospital. So it gives us some aspects of climate resilience. But for this model, this second model of replication, firstly, we are always going to need evidence to prove at small scale that a climate resilient technology works. We're going to need money to replicate it. And we're going to need a new set of skills that we might not already have, because these are new technologies that we're not familiar with how to operate. Next slide. The third model of how we can create technology adoption and innovation and accelerate climate resilient sanitation is that, firstly, in the area of regulation, we might need to make some quite big changes. At the moment, we often have very prescriptive regulation. Sanitation equals a septic tank that's designed like this. How can we have innovation and new ways of doing things if our regulation stops us from allowing to have new ways of achieving it? Whereas we could set up regulation based on the outcome, that we want a climate resilient service, and you can design it any way you want, and that would give much more room for innovation. In this Model 3, it's also about changing value system and mindsets and the issue of political will. Efforts from Africa and also in Indonesia to bring sanitation up to the presidential level shows that this is possible. And I hope that here in Bangladesh and in the nearby countries in Nepal, that we can bring the issue of sanitation to a much higher level. And that is another way to accelerate progress to climate resilient sanitation. So I'd now like you to think for yourselves, if we could go to the next slide. Firstly, so I have two questions. The first one is, in your context, wherever you work, which of those three models, the keep going model, the reach further model, or the change the rules model, which one dominates expansion of climate resilient sanitation in your context? And the second one, which one do you think you should focus on more? So you're going to need to take out your phone, which at the moment I hope you're hiding from yourselves so you're not checking your emails or your messages, but take out your phone and then you need to scan the QR code that is on the screen, and then you can answer these two simple questions. You could also, in your phone, type in www.menti.com and put in the number, which is 56943314. So take out your phone, scan the QR code, have a think about these two questions and these three models of accelerating innovation adoption for climate resilience. Okay, and if I can ask those in doing the magic with the slides, if you could do some magic and switch it over to the results. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to try technology in the very first of the plenaries. Okay. So we have a pretty even split, yeah? A few extra on the keep going model, but quite a lot on the change the rules. So that's good, because I think to make faster change, we might actually need to do more of the third model. Okay, maybe we can switch to the second question. Okay, so there you have it. This is what there seems agreement. We need to move more to the right. We can't stay with some of the technologies and the approaches we're already using. We need to move much more towards changing the rules, but also Model 2 on replication. Okay, thank you. We can go back to the slides. I have just one last slide. So I think it's important for any of these models to think through what the opportunities are for each model, but also what are the risks. So the opportunity with the first model, and I think we shouldn't throw it away. We already know how to do some things in climate resilient sanitation by making small changes. And if we use those methods, we can also focus on the most vulnerable straight away, because we already know something that we can do that will improve the situation. But the risk is that it won't be sufficiently climate resilient, and we'll miss out on other opportunities that might bring co-benefits from sanitation, whether that be water that can be recovered from water reuse or nutrients, and also wider contributions, for instance, to food resilience to other sectors. The second model has the opportunity that we can start small, we can try many, many different technologies, we can see which ones work, we can engage the private sector, but it has the risk that that process is going to take too long. There's a lag as we start from a new technology and try to progress. And there's also potential for inequities. Often it's more expensive, I think we heard Jackson mention that, it's more expensive to begin with until you go to scale. And so how are we going to focus on the exposed vulnerable populations if we've got very expensive prototypes that we aren't yet able to scale? And the change the rules model has its own opportunities. We can make a step change in adoption. We might be able to make more sustainable change if we've really worked on people's values and mindsets about sanitation. But it has the risk that it's certainly not for people with engineering skills. This is much more a social change process. Maybe we need to be working with other groups, and I think we'll talk about that a bit later. And also, there's always going to be resistance to change, and we have to be ready to address that. So these are risks and opportunities with any of these paths. Go forward 2 slides. Okay, now you have my risks and opportunities. A little late, doesn't matter. Next slide. Next. Thank you. Okay, so what would I like you to do? I'd like you to reconsider your role and think, how can I have most impact? If I think about these different models of keep going, of reaching further with replicating new technologies, of changing the rules, how can you have the most impact, or with what combination of these 3 different pathways? And secondly, my message is we shouldn't ever just work on technological innovation or just work on systems change. We need to work on them together. Next slide has some resources that I hope can help you in your work, and many thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much for putting your hands together for Juliet. I think when you've put your whole life working towards a certain goal and then you have to present it in 15 minutes, it's quite of a challenge. So thank you very much for almost succeeding in that, Juliet. So I think our next speaker, I think there's no need to present him, not to the Bangladeshi people, not to the international public, because really he is a monument in the world of water hygiene and sanitation. I think he's the first keynote speaker in my life that will do a keynote speak, and his son will also do a keynote speak. So he has been passing on the journey or the challenge to his next generation. And so Professor Feroze Ahmed is a distinguished civil and environmental engineer. He graduated from the Buet and did his PhD at the University of Strijswijk in the UK. He's the former dean and head of civil engineering at Buet, and he also served as vice chancellor and is now emeritus professor at the Stamford University of Bangladesh. So he published 160 papers, wrote 22 books. He's a recognized prolific researcher and delivered over 95, this is the 96th keynote lecture, and contributed to over 20 development projects with many gold stars and recognitions in his name. Because of time, I will not list them all, but the list is quite impressive. So without further ado, Professor Feroze Ahmed, please take the floor and try to squeeze all that accumulated knowledge in 15 minutes. I know it will be a challenge, but please let's give it a go.
Okay, Okay, Mr. Chairman, distinguished participants, I will speak on technological innovations in sanitation. In fact, technology is, as you know, we use so far were mainly natural process, and gradually is shifting over to high technologies in sanitation and latrines. Now, science produces knowledge, and knowledge required to develop technologies, and innovation is actually changes the technology for our use. And the country which is very good in innovation, they produces technologies. And in Bangladesh is not very good in that. Probably the global innovation index of Bangladesh is about 16, which is quite low. But still, we made some remarkable achievement in sanitations during the MGD period. We were achieved the status of open defecation free country. But in case of SDG, our progress is not very satisfactory. As the UNICEF representative said that we need 50 years to achieve the goal. And can we wait that 50 years to achieve the safely managed sanitation goal? This is quite, say, unnatural, in fact. Now, it's not all visible, I think. Okay, I just mentioned the processes that we used for sanitation. In fact, there are physical processes, then biological processes, and these two processes are aligned to nature. And usually we do some separation of solids and liquids, then we go for biological treatment, and there are many processes that is used, has been mentioned, and what we practice now. But gradually, the technologies are changing. That is, new technologies like thermal processes as well as some electrochemical processes are coming in the sanitation sector, although this was originally practiced in industrial waste treatment. Now, the technological changes that has been taking place, I have grouped into 4 groups. Group 1, where some microbes, specialized microbes or enzymes used for sanitation, or those are actually introduced to accelerate the decomposition process as well as to reduce the volume of sludge. The second process is actually the conventional technologies has been grouped into a compact form, and that is now practiced in some of the places. The fourth technology is that the advanced technologies are now being brought into compact form to treat the fecal sludges as well as the fecal matters. Now the fourth group, which is what we say is the technology, future of the technology. I have grouped there, I think, 4 technologies which are in experimental stage mostly, but sometimes in some places it is being used. Now, I will not go pass through many of the technologies. This tiger latrine, which is actually using some sorts of specialized sorts of microbes to accelerate the process. Then the biofuel is the similar one. Then we go for this embolic toilet, which is using, say, a special stain of different groups of microorganisms to treat this fecal matter. Fourth one is sunmarked, which is using some specialized enzyme. These enzymes and microbes play a vital role in treatment of the sewage. Now, what we are doing at this, up to this stage is mainly the natural processes. We are just confining this sewage or fecal matter in a toilet, and maybe the toilet is made in soil by covering a pit, and that is the natural process. And the fecal matter is being treated there. But nowadays, the things have changed. The advanced technologies are coming in, and the conventional technologies are grouped into a compact form. I will give you some example. For example, this Jakasau sewage treatment plant, in which the primary sedimentation, then biological treatment like anaerobic processes, anoxic processes, and some, oxidation taking place, and then final sedimentation, and they used also some disinfection processes. All these are compacted into a small form. So this is more convenient. People can use it for treatment of sewage. The second one is zyclonic, and that also use different technologies. But I am impressed by one technology called this aquanic. It has a small, say, container in which it has been divided into several compartments, and each compartment doing the job of treatment perfectly. One is the, say, sedimentation, then goes for anaerobic decomposition, then goes for anoxic processes, and also some say biological oxidation processes. All these are encompassed in all, and then ended up into some sorts of disinfections, and that is the process which has been combined into small boxes. So this is another process that is very important. Then we come back to some advanced sewage treatment processes which has also been made into a small compact form. Sequencing batch reactor. This is an advanced process. It has got sorts of batch as well as continuous process. It combined different stages in cyclic order. One is the, say, filling the reactor, and then goes for aeration, and when the whole sorts of organic matter is consumed by the bacteria, then it goes for sedimentation, and in this sedimentation the supernatant is clean and it is removed, and the bacteria remain at the bottom, and then it goes for against this refilling with the sewage. And what happened here actually, the bacteria which is actually hungry for food, they are introduced in the new sewage, and it becomes activated. And thus the sewage is treated in cyclic order. This batch system is compacted into one boxes in which the treatment is being accomplished. But if two reactors are made, then sequentially it can be a continuous process. So this is a advanced treatment that has been incorporated into the small boxes. Then member bioreactor, which Juliet has mentioned, This is a very advanced treatment in which this sewage is aerated in a reactor, and the effluent is collected via a membrane. And the effluent is very clear, and this continues for a long time actually, and you can get a very clear effluent depending on the what types of membrane you have used. It may be micro membrane, it may be nano membrane, or it can even be sorts of any other form of membrane. And depending on this type of membrane, the quality of the effluent depends, and that can produce very purified water as good as drinking water. Then there is also moving bed biofilm. Actually, the trickling filter is a sort of fixed bed system, but they have developed some disc of some sorts of plastic disc on which the biological growth takes place. It's moving and really coming in contact with the food, and the bacteria usually gradually take up all the organic matters. Then there is electrochemical reactor, which is usually used for industrial waste treatment, but now it can be used also for sewage treatment. It actually, by the electrodes, the chloride or some sorts of salinity is broken down into chlorine, which reacts with microorganism to inactivate it, as well as it releases some of the nitrogens, and that is called this denitrification. Now, it can be also made into form of pipes. The same thing can be compacted into small places. Also, new generator is another type, and there is R3H20 also use more or less all the sanitation technologies into compact form, and this sewage treatment can be done in a very small places. Okay, then we come back to EcoSan. This has also used all the existing technologies. As you can see that a box behind the latrine can treat the sewage. The first one, top one, is the anaerobic process. There are three compartments in that: anaerobic process, then anoxic process, and then aeration process. So after these the sewage is treated, and the remaining pollutants is removed by filtration just below that, and then it is passed on to electrochemical treatment, where it is disinfected and the effluent is discharged, and then the water is used for recirculation. So this is all the things are in a small box, and the sludge is disinfected and then it is discharged. Now, this is a very compact form. We have got the latrines like liquid waste module and as well as dry module. Both are represented here, and as you can see, these smart flasks, they first separate the solids and the liquids. Then the liquids is treated by different methods, and then they purify it, and the water can be used for recirculation. Then the solid part is treated by some sorts of thermal methods. What's called the pterofiction is actually sorts of heating the solids up to a temperature of 200 to 300 degrees Celsius, and then this solid is turned into some charts. And automatically, when it is heat treated, some gases are produced. The gases are treated and then discharged in the atmosphere. So you can see that it's just behind the commode, there is a small box in which all the treatment processes are done, but the process has used this thermal process, which is rather produce some bad smell, and these smells are removed by the treatment of the exhaust or what is vaporized from the treatment process. So this is a very compact one, and I will say that this may be the technology of the future. Now, there is a omniprocessor. One of these units has been used in Bangladesh, and here you can see that the fecal sludge is dried up, used as a fuel, and then it is burned in in sorts of incinerator, and then the heat is used for running an engine and a generator. Then it produces electricity, and the vapor is condensed, and then it is purified up to a drinking water quality. So this is the situation. This is actually happening, in fact. So here you can see that it is generally they say that it is energy neutral, means no extra energy is needed, but the unit that has been established in Bangladesh, Rohingya camp, they need additional fuel, and this additional fuel, it's not working that way. Okay. Then a co-composting of fecal sludges has been trying in Bangladesh for a long time, and already it has been stabilized. And these units, this actually mixes the fecal sludge and the solid waste together, and the compost is together, and that solves the problem of fecal sludge as well as solid waste. And this unit works very well because the nutrient deficient solid waste and the nutrient rich fecal sludge are mixed together. They produce a compost which is rich in nutrient. So these are the things that I wanted to say today, and I thank the ITN Bangladesh for providing me some of these drawings as well as some pictures. And that's all I wanted to say. And if there is any questions, I think I will be ready to answer for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having applauded for this brilliant explanation and rapid overview of all the different technologies that are available. To summarize, before we go with the questions, I think Professor Juliet, she talked, of course, about the importance of financing. I mean, to go further and implement solutions, we have to find financing, and perhaps the credit is not so easy in this time of political turmoil, but that's one part. But then the second part that she drew attention to is that it's really necessary to move from technology towards regulation and system change. So and really draw the attention that is an evolution that we really need to push the sector further. And then, of course, Professor Feroze gave a fantastic overview of all the different technologies that are available, and also the fact that we are working still with technologies that have been invented in Bangladesh many years ago, and that we are slowly but surely we have to evolve to other technologies. And I think that the Gates Foundation played an important role in that evolution. So, as a moderator, it's perhaps my privilege to ask the first questions to the guests while you are thinking about questions. And the first question from the public, it would be nice if it could be asked by a lady, because the ladies are bearing the brunt of the wash sector. So please reflect a little bit. And before I call upon somebody from the public to give a question, perhaps I could start with, and let's say we have to give respect to the age. So Juliet, you will forgive me that I first go to Professor Feroze. I first go to you, Professor. So you have devoted your life to the development of WASH in Bangladesh. A big part of your life, a big part of your brilliance, a big part of your energy went into that. And so I'm wondering, when you're looking back and you now see the video that we showed just as the conference was starting, what are your impressions and what are your recommendations for the ways forward? You have handed the candle in the wind, if I may say so, to your son. So what are your recommendations for your son? Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Actually, this video that we have seen is really thought-provoking, as well as it is transmitting enough knowledge, definitely. And this video definitely increasing the knowledge of the people and motivating people. Actually, people are knowledgeable to some extent, but the practically they not use it in respect of sanitation. That is very unfortunate, in fact, and we need to motivate them so that they can use their knowledge they have acquired so far, or they know about sanitation. They should use that knowledge, I think.
Thank you very much. And then, if I can ask you questions for Juliet. So the issue of gender already came on the table. What are for you the main important gender issues in the whole world of sanitation? And sanitation and technology and climate change is a bit of a Trojan horse here. So you can go a bit wider than just sanitation.
Okay, thank you. So I think the issue of gender equality and how it links to climate change is, as people already mentioned this morning, that women are often the ones that bear the brunt. They're the ones that suffer the most if there's a climate event in terms of not having access to sanitation. But I think we need to not just think of them that's sort of seeing women in a victim light. When we think about gender equality and sanitation and climate change, there are many, many much more and bigger hopes and ambitions we should have. What about women's role in entrepreneurship? We know from previous research on that topic, women entrepreneurs need to be supported in different ways to male entrepreneurs because of the gender dynamics in households. Women need to be brought to the forefront. If we think about the step change I was talking about and changing the rules, we need women decision makers, women leaders. So let's not just only focus on women as victims when it comes to climate change and sanitation, but also much more ambitious change in terms of gender equality.
Absolutely. I think that's a very wise way of responding to this question. And so I call for the first question of the public, if possible, a young lady, as we go ahead with as we follow up on the gender issue here. And then please ask your question, if possible, in English, because I don't have my translation material with me. So I understand that we still have to warm up a little bit the room, so that's why we didn't leave too much room for questions of the public. But is there somebody who's bold enough to ask a first question?
Yeah. May I? Okay, I am one of the implemental level person here.
You're not a lady.
Yeah, not a lady. Yeah.
Isn't there a lady that is willing to stand up? Come on, ladies, it's your moment.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Priyanka from BRAC.
Yes,
So
please
my
go ahead.
question is to Juliet ma'am. So in our fields, we have seen that we try to provide WASH financing to women so that they can be entrepreneurs, WASH entrepreneurs, if I say. But in most of the cases, we have seen that those women give that loan to the male part of their family so that they can become WASH entrepreneurs. So what can we do in this field so that those women take the initiative themselves and become a successful entrepreneur in the field, actually?
Who wants to take that one? Okay, Juliet, go ahead.
I'm happy to answer that. very common issue, and that's exactly what I meant when I said that female entrepreneurs need different kind of support to male. And what it means is we need to understand why those dynamics happen at the household level. Why is it that they're not enabled to be able to take up a business opportunity and to use the loans that have been provided to them? It means we need to work not just with women, but we actually need to work with men as well, and talk about the reasons why it might be good that women are able to also have a place in earning income, a role outside of the household. So we can't just work on these issues with women alone. We need to work on them at a societal level and mostly with men, because it's the giving up of power to change the power dynamics that's most difficult, but most important if we're going to actually have change. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Then I will come to the gentleman in the back, but first I would like to ask the question to the PD who just, Mr. Shafour, please go ahead with your question, and then afterwards we will close the session with the gentleman in the back.
Thank
PD, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm Saifur Rahman from the Department of Public Health Engineering. Yeah, my question goes to Juliet, actually. I'm thinking on your 3 module, going on, I mean, going as it is, keep going, then reaching further and change. I think this 3 module is interlinked. I mean, if you cannot keep going, you cannot reach further. And if you cannot reach further, then you cannot make the changes. My question to you is, what do you think, where Bangladesh is? I mean, which module we should follow? I mean, seeing the present progress, you know, you have seen 1.14% progress on sanitation per year, which will take 50 years. I mean, I believe it will not take 50 years because it will not remain 1.14% all over the 50 years. So time will be less than 50 years. But what do you think? Where are we now? I mean, on the module of keep going or
can I
reaching further? Thank you very much.
Professor Feroze, I think if you could answer that question. You would prefer to, okay, please go ahead, but I think your image of the plane that suddenly has to become a rocket was an interesting one.
Actually, Bangladesh, the remaining stagnant for in the SDG period that I have said, its progress is very, very slow actually. If we project it, that needs maybe 50 years. But how can we achieve this SDG within this short period? It has to be accelerated maybe 8 times or 10 times. Can we do that actually in Bangladesh? I think this will be impossible actually. Not for only Bangladesh, but all the developing countries are lagging behind. And they are lagging so much that they have to accelerate maybe 5 to 10 times to reach the goal. And that is not possible. So I am sure that developing country cannot achieve this sustainable development goal.
Thank you very much. Time is not on our side. We have to start closing, but if we can have one last question with the brave gentleman in the back who broke the ice and who brought with the first question. So you have the honor to close the session with your last question. So please go ahead with a brief question.
Thank you very much. I tried to break the ice, but the ice has already been melted. So I'm Chief Waste Management Officer of Sylhet City Corporation. I'm very thankful to hear both these speeches by the esteemed professors. Let me put a few words first, that within the next 25 years, Bangladesh will face that about the half of the population will be staying in the cities. And we know that we are a very densely populated country. We will not have that many places to build so much of treatment plants. And with the 5-10 years, we require another treatment plants. So I'll try to focus on Dr. Feroze's presentation that he has very highlighted the Zukasu model. If I'm not wrong, it is a Japanese system or the model of sanitation. I'll really request the planners and the leaders of this sector to think about household treatment rather than going for central treatment plants. Because to my knowledge and to my experience goes that this treatment plant, maybe it is public or private, it will not work because with the rapid urbanization, we will not have that much of place. So if you have comment on this, please. Thank you.
Please go ahead with a brief reply, the both of you.
In fact, sewage treatment, household treatment is rather difficult. We are promoting earlier this septic tank system and the soak well together. Then that was giving some sorts of solution and it is acceptable to also by joint monitoring program of the United Nations. But the problem is that in many places in Bangladesh, the soil is not soaking the water, and that's really making the pits full, and that is encountered almost everywhere in Bangladesh. Secondly, the water table is very high, and if the water table is high, in saturated level, the pollution can transport a long distance, and it can pollute the groundwater. And Bangladesh is dependent on groundwater. So really, we cannot promote this system further, especially because of the densely populated area in particularly urban areas. So we have to have some sorts of treatment, and treatment plant, as you see, even in Dhaka, there is a proposal for the particular plan that was made for sewage system in Dhaka. They need 5 treatment plants, out of which 2 have been constructed. 1 was existing there and 1 has been constructed, but there are problems in providing sewage because the sewage line is not oriented towards that. So another 3 treatment plant, if we don't do it, then definitely we'll have to have some sorts of on-site or a group sorts of treatment to achieve this sustainable development goal. And in Dhaka city, even if we can achieve under sustainable development goal, then our coverage increases about 10% only by providing proper sanitation in Dhaka. And that is why we are not showing much progress in sustainable development goal attainment. And in fact, in the rural area, the pit latrines, and if we have some sorts of fecal sludge treatment facilities, then it will be acceptable to joint monitoring program as a safely managed option. Our main problem lies for the shared latrine. We have got about 25 to 28% of the people using shared latrine, and that is not acceptable to JMP as safely managed sanitations. Although shared latrine is used in public places and public facilities, but the private shared latrine is not maintained well. Actually, we raised this question several times, but joint monitoring program, they conducted some survey and said that the private shared latrine is not maintained well, and that's that cannot be accepted as a safely managed option. So we need to convert this shared latrine into individual household latrine, and that is a big job for Bangladesh. I don't know whether we can achieve this in next few years. Actually, my own opinion is that all the developing countries, very few developing countries can achieve the sustainable development goal of safely managed sanitation.
It is clear that the Professor Feroze is very passionate about the topic that he's discussing, but people are nudging me that our time is up. So perhaps, thank you very much, Professor. Perhaps, Juliet, you could just have a very short ending, and then we can stop the session. So please go ahead.
Okay, I'd just like to add a couple points on the last question about what scale we focus on, whether it's household, city scale, and in my view, it's in between. We need to be working in an area-based way on decentralized technologies that are professionally managed by people who are trained and using some of the technologies that Dr. Ahmed mentioned earlier, more advanced technologies that can help us recover and recycle nutrients, water, etc. Not at the city scale, not at the household, but somewhere in between.
Okay, thank you very much. So we started with 50 minutes delay. We have brought it down to 9 minutes delay, to 5 minutes delay. So thank you very much all. I'm sure there's a lot of other questions bubbling. This is kind of a warming up session, so I'm sure that in the next plenary session there will be more questions, but I think that our keynote speakers deserve a warm applause, and thank you very much for your attention.
What an inspiring discussion. We have extended our heartfelt gratitude to all the moderator and the keynote speakers for sharing their expertise and wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just the beginning. Now we are taking break for tea, after which we will continue with our technical sessions from 11:30 a.m. at Crystal Ballroom, Ruby, Pearl, and Motomoti. A gentle reminder for you all, snacks will be served up now at the lounge in front of Crystal Ballroom, Ruby, Pearl at the ground floor, and at the lounge in front of Motomoti boardroom at the first floor. I believe you all have already installed the conference app. Also, you have been provided with a map. Kindly follow the map provided in the conference app. Another information for you all here, around our venue, there is so many drinking water points and water refill stations. If you feel to drink water, please feel free to visit our stations or water points. Thank you so much. That's all for this session. We'll meet again at 4 p.m. in this venue for the next plenary session. Thank you so much.